a world where the number of movies available is great, but many are so bad, you'll learn a new definition of hate. One man sifts and reviews through the movie sludge. One man will be the movie cop, jury, and judge. He goes by many names, but you know him by Movies Merica.
Democratic leaders apologizing or reversing course after multiple occurrences of do as I say, not as I do.
Tonight, while Governor Newsom is telling all of us to have Thanksgiving dinner outside, he's facing some new fallout for that fancy birthday dinner party he went to at the French Laundry.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot has been adamant that people stay home and socially distance for weeks. But a social media post from the woman who cut her hair this weekend has some wondering if the mayor is saying one thing and doing another.
Yeah, Juan and Susie, the controversy surrounds Governor Gavin Newsom, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, and San Francisco Mayor London Breed. All three were seen at pictures at the big game, not wearing masks, even though they were required.
Over the weekend, President Joe Biden had dinner with First Lady Jill Biden at Field La Mer, a swanky restaurant in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C. Did you notice anything? The Bidens, of course, are unmasked as they leave.
Just wanted to provide some context for the movie that I will be reviewing this week. Roll that intro. Hey, all you beautiful movie-loving people out there, live from a red carpet somewhere, surrounded by celebrities. This is the Movies Merica podcast with Van Ebert, where movie reviews meet cold brews. Van will review your favorite and maybe not so favorite movies while enjoying some ice-cold beers and saying cheers. Now let's head into the theater and join our illustrious movie reviewer du jour, who's no doubt got the beer ready to pour, Van Ebert. As Robert Duvall famously said in Apocalypse Now, I love the smell of hypocrisy in the morning. Yep, I know, I remember that line, absolutely. So, do you smell a little hypocrisy? Yes. That'll be a little sub-theme, subplot of today's episode of Movies Merica Podcast, which I so appreciate you guys joining me for here today. Yeah, we have a super special episode today because we will be, or I will be reviewing, and you will be listening, I hope, to my review of Superspreader.
Breaking news, stay at home. That is the order tonight as the coronavirus pandemic spreads.
We need to bend the curve in the state of California.
Social distancing works. Stay home, save lives.
Your actions can affect my health.
It's critically important that everyone follows the orders that we are given.
The governor of California came out with a new set of restrictions. One of those restrictions was you can no longer sing in church anymore.
Period. Full stop.
And I remember when he said that, and I heard that, I was like, okay, it's on.
More than 50,000 Americans have now died from this virus.
Christian singer and activist Sean Feucht leading what's called Let Us Worship.
He called it a worship protest.
The organizers used the pretense of religion, and that simply was not right.
If Jesus were here right now, he absolutely would wear a mask.
Meanwhile, suicide rates are exploding. Drug and alcohol use is ravaging America. Rioting and destruction and unrest. And there's no church to bring the hope.
I get a letter from the city prosecutor saying that you're violating the CDC requirement. We reserve the right to arrest your church members.
Every thought I had was, I wanted to end it. That's scary.
If you've observed recurring violations of the safer at home order, in this case, snitches get rewards.
It's wild that this is happening in America, and it's wild that people are okay with it.
There was a man that we met. He grew up in the communist country.
He grabbed my hands and he said, all the things that are happening right now is how it began for us. America needs to wake up. You have to wake them up.
Now that is where communism and Christianity have a headlong clash.
How close is Christian nationalism to white nationalism?
It is close.
There are things happening today that are pushing people to a second American Revolution.
Christians are rising up. I'm telling you guys.
This guy is probably responsible for hundreds of deaths.
You know how valuable your life is?
Jesus, we ask that you heal this country.
What people like Sean are saying about what God says oftentimes is false.
You are not a Christian.
There's a pandemic, there's a plague, here's a move of God that's going to change America.
China must be laughing their butts off when they see the kind of hate and conflict that this movie shows here. But that's another conversation for another time. We're here for the Superspreader review, absolutely. But, hey, before I even get into the review, I just want to let you guys know that these Movies Merica episodes are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many other platforms you can find podcast episodes on, including, of course, Movies Merica, the very podcast you're listening to right now. And if you happen to be on Apple Podcast, feel free to zing on down all the way to the very bottom of all my episodes and check out those fantastic 5 stars. And feel free to give me a 5-star rating if you so choose. Yes, that would be splendiferous if you did that. And then right down there, since you're down there anyway, there's a button called Write a Review, and it does exactly what it says. It gives you the opportunity to write a review. And, hey, you can write a quick review. You know, it could be a few words, could be a few paragraphs, could be a few biblical chapters. You know, it's completely up to you. And also, if you zing back all the way to the very top, up at the top right, there's the ellipsis, the 3 dots. And if you click in there, there's a follow the show option. And that just means that that's going to automatically download all these fantastic Movies Merica episodes for you automatically every single time I release one of these here podcast episodes. Yes. And also, the episodes are on moviesmerica.com. And I'm also on Twitter and Instagram under Movies Merica, of course. And you may have spotted my so sweet new Movies Merica logo. It's so choice. Yes, you'll see it there. You know, it's a changing of the guard, you know. Had to change up that logo because, like they say, if it ain't new, it's through. You bet. Okay, so let's get into one of my favorite parts of each episode, and that is a part where I get to use this podcast recording as an excuse to drink just one more beer. Yeah, that's right. People, you are at the home where movie reviews meet ice cold brews, and apparently it sounds like I've already had a few too many brews. I can't talk. All right. Hey, all right. So this episode's beer of choice is from Louisiana. Absolutely. Louisiana, and it's Abita Brewing Purple Haze. Purple Haze all around. Okay, well, boy, I got to stop doing it. I'll get dinged by the Jimi Hendrix estate or something like that. So, but yeah, it's Abita Brewing Purple Haze, and it's a raspberry lager. And I typically don't like fruit-flavored beers. You know, to be honest with you guys, I grabbed this beer so fast off the shelf, I didn't even bother to see what kind of beer it was. I just like the title. I'm a big Jimi Hendrix fan. I like Purple Haze. There you go. And so I've taken a few tugs off it already, and yeah, I get it. Obviously it tastes like raspberry, not too much, so it's not overpowering too much with the raspberry flavor. That's why I do kind of like it. So, and to prove that I like it, I'm gonna take a nice little tug off this bad boy. Fruity. So sweet. I love it. Okay, so let's get right into Superspreader. And so as far as like what this movie is about, the trailer did go over quite a bit about what this movie is in fact covering. But I'll just say that this is about a guy named Sean Feucht and his wife Kate. And they lead like worship services at a church, obviously in California. And Gavin Newsom got to the point where he was kind of puffing his chest out, kind of feeling his oats, like, you know what, I've been able to tell Californians to do this, and guess what, they did it. And I've been able to tell them to do that, and guess what, they did it. So old Gavin boy was like, oh man, what else can I do next, man? Let's see what else I can restrict. Well, I've always hated churches. I've always hated religion because I'm just so enlightened, and I'm just, so sophisticated. And enlightened, sophisticated people don't go to church like me. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to say that, hey, churches, yeah, you're not allowed to sing. You're not allowed to worship at these churches. And Mr. Sean Feucht and his wife Kate weren't having that. Oh, heck no. Heck no. They remembered that this country was founded on Christian principles. Like it or not, with what a lot of people nowadays that have turned away from God think this country was based on Christian principles. Okay? And I think they recognize that, okay, we've got this government telling us that, this First Amendment right that we have to worship, they're telling us we can't do it, and they're going to use it under the guise of safety. We got to keep you safe. Safe. Well, in that case, then you could restrict all kinds of liberties, all kinds of constitutional rights under the guise of safety. I mean, and so Sean and his wife, they decided, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to hold worship services. We're going to hold them outside because that's supposed to be safer, and it is. It's scientifically proven that it's safer from coronavirus and all that, being outside. Definitely safer than being locked up into your house during some lockdowns, which definitely killed more people than, say, if we would have just let, people go out and roam, and then we would have just asked the most vulnerable to stay locked down and mask up and whatever. And then everybody else who's not, who's barely vulnerable, like young people, let them live their lives, right? So, yeah, they went out and they decided, we're going to hold these worship services around the country so that people, if they want to worship, they have a place to go to instead of being holed up in their houses, And this is for those people that, were watching their church online just doesn't do it for them. They want to be able to congregate and have fellowship with their fellow man. Okay, coronavirus with a death rate of less than 1%, be damned, right? Okay, and a COVID and a virus where it's clear who gets the virus and dies. Okay, like a lot of people of all demographics got the virus, but who died from the virus? Well, there's some clear delineations as far as who gets the virus and then dies. And as long as you do your research and if you are in one of those, those vulnerable groups or demographics, if you know that you're not, then you should be able to live your life. If you know that you are, then yeah, you should do yourself and your fellow man, a favor and be smart. So yeah, they went around and they had these worship services, and as you would completely predict, the COVID Karens, the leftist politicians, they just went nuts, like, you're gonna kill everybody, and so they sicked, Antifa and all these fascist groups after this guy and his wife that just wanted to go out there and worship God, didn't bother anybody, they weren't banging down doors and, hey, get out here and worship with us. No, they just wanted to meet somewhere and worship and whatnot. And so that just got all the anti-church folks, they just wigged out. Hearing that, as you would imagine, this movie, it's just an in-your-face reminder that the government, which you'll see a lot in this movie, the government has clearly forgotten what is in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. what it says in the second paragraph is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So they get their just powers from us, the governed. They don't get to just make up their own powers. They don't get to just say, hey, govern, we're just going to give ourselves these absolute ultimate powers and you got to be fine with it. No. Their just powers, according to the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence from the Founding Fathers, say that any powers that they get are only from the consent of the governed. That's us. That's us, okay? And as I'm sure you've seen, if you're honest, you'll recognize that the government clearly doesn't think that they work for us, right? They just are like, you know what? John Q. Citizen, you're going to do what we want. Otherwise, we're going to send the cops to your ass. We're going to arrest you. We're going to make sure you get fired. I mean, that's what they're doing. Does that sound like a government that realizes that their powers are derived from the consent of the governed? Yeah, not to me it doesn't. And so this movie shows like Gavin Newsom banning church worship, Andrew Cuomo laying down these dictatorial kind of rules, and then of course getting a lot of grandmas and grandpas killed in the process because he didn't hesitate for a second to take COVID patients and just throw them in to nursing homes like they're living, breathing bioweapons. So people in nursing homes that otherwise would have still been alive today died because Andrew Cuomo was like, you know what? Now let's not keep those COVID patients on those ships that Trump provided. Let's not keep them in these convention centers that we've designated for this. Let's not keep them in hospitals. No, you see that building over there with all those old people that are very susceptible to dying from a virus? Yeah, let's put all the COVID patients right in there with them. Yeah, for maximum grandma and grandpa murder. So that's who we're supposed to listen to is guys like Andrew Cuomo. And they got Lori Lightfoot, or Beetlejuice as I call her and others call her. She's talking about, as you heard in my intro, she's like, you better stay at home, you better lock down, and she's out there getting a haircut, and her excuse is, well, I'm the public face. You had Eric Garcetti, he's in that trailer, the whole saying about snitches get stitches. Well, in this case, snitches get rewards. Yes, they do. And then also, as far as banning church worship, sadly, there was a whole lot of church leaders that were more than happy to drop to their knees and follow the rules, simply because they're cowards. They're cowards. They don't want to go up and they don't want to go up against the government. They're afraid of confrontation, and so they cling to the whole, we're turning the other cheek. The Bible tells us to obey everything the government tells us to do, which it doesn't. But they're gonna cling to that because it's so much easier than confronting. It's hard. Like confronting and standing up for your flock in your church it's hard. It's hard work. I don't want to do it. It's so hard. It's so much easier to just agree with the government. Oh yeah, and then just look down my nose at all my fellow churchgoers that want to stand up to the government. All these fellow churchgoers that I've been friends with for decades, but now I'm going to turn my back on them at the first sign of difficulty. So yeah, you just had churches doing that. A lot of church leaders doing that. And you had millions of people complying with what the media tells them to do, which is basically passed down from the government. What you hear from the media is passed down from the government. You hear Biden say something or some other government official on the Democrat side say something, and if you're really paying attention, like a day or two later on, you'll hear the media repeat word for word, syllable for syllable, that same talking point, okay? So it's handed down from there. Maybe Biden doesn't call up to CNN president, hey, Zach, or whoever, yeah, I want you to say this week. It probably doesn't work that way. But since CNN and MSNBC worship at the altar of the Democrat Party, they know what's up, and they do what they're told there. And this movie, I mean, to be fair, it is a fair movie in that it provides fair commentary from people that clearly don't agree with the filmmakers. I mean, it has views from both sides. Okay, it's not just from the view of Sean Feucht and his wife, or from the people that would agree with the message of this movie. It has people that don't agree with this message. One of them is like there's a pastor on Skid Row in L.A. And yeah, he doesn't hold back. He's clearly not down with lettuce worship. And then they feature like an apparently anti-church podcaster. That was the guy in the trailer that he was like, if Jesus was here, he'd wear a mask. One of those people that like to pretend that they know like what Jesus would do if he was on Earth. If Jesus was on Earth, he'd like grunge music. If Jesus was on Earth, he'd watch The View. I mean, the pomposity of these people, I tell you. And basically, this movie also shows you that there's an abundance of people inaccurately, possibly out of maliciousness, trying to make not hating your country to counter all the venomous hatred for this country the same as Nazi-like white nationalism. So if you don't go out there, you're not screaming from the top of the mountains, I hate this country. This country's terrible. This country invented slavery. And instead you choose to not tear this or, just rip on this country. And instead you choose to fly an American flag or, whatever. If you have anything less than venomous hatred, they consider that the same as Nazi-like white nationalism. Okay, that's how they're trying to smear people that don't hate this country. All the while, they realize this country has faults. I mean, there's no perfect country in this world, and America's the same way. It's got faults in the past, and I'm sure maybe it's still doing some things wrong. I mean, it's not a perfect country. No country is, okay? This movie also shows that Portland and Seattle have just let evil take over their cities. I mean, in these cities, you've got Antifa tear gassing little kids. When parents bring their little kids to these lettuce worship events, you got Antifa going in there, and they're tear gassing the little kids. They're throwing rocks at the people, including the little kids there. I mean, this just shows you that Sean Feucht, and the group that's doing this, I mean, they're brave. They're going, when they go to Portland, they don't go out into the Portland suburbs. They go like in a park by the river, like in the heart of not too far away from like the federal courthouse, where most of the rioting was going on. They're right there in the heart of it. They don't hesitate. They're not afraid of that. And as you would imagine, the Democrats, they send Antifa out right there, or the Antifa goes out there and attacks these guys, and whether or not it's under Dem control. I don't hear any Democrats going, Antifa, what you're doing is evil. Stop attacking kids with tear gas. I don't hear any Democrats saying that. Every single time Antifa goes out there and starts, pummeling cops and trying to destroy buildings and blinding, cops and that kind of thing. I never hear Democrats going, hey, you got to stop doing that. But every single time there's like, some conservative, walking around constitutionally lawful, walking around with an AR-15 at some, anti-vaccine riot. Oh man, they jump right on those people. And those people aren't, even the guy with the AR-15 slung around his shoulder, he's not doing any violence. He's not committing any violence. He's not hurting anybody. He's not looting a store. He's not tear gassing kids. He's not breaking windows, but the Democrats will go right after that guy. But Antifa, with all the destruction they cause, you don't hear one thing. So that tells me the Democrats are complicit, okay? And so this movie also goes into how the lockdowns and school closings, I mean, it just made this country's mental health and suicide rates and drug and alcohol abuse and domestic abuse, all those rates of all those problems skyrocket, okay? We had COVID deaths, but we also had all these drug and alcohol abuse problems, increased domestic abuse, mental health issues, suicide rates skyrocketed. Like, is a suicide death, is that less impactful than a COVID death? So you're telling me that we're trying to prevent COVID deaths, and if we prevent COVID deaths by locking down, like, we don't have any other problems to worry about, right? We don't have suicide problems to worry about. We don't have mental health problems to worry about. We don't have, like, more husbands beating and killing their wives because they're all cooped up inside. Those aren't problems we have to worry about. Like, those don't count. So yeah, this movie really goes over that and just and talks about how what Sean and his wife and others that help out in this, because this movie's not just about Sean, it's about a lot of people coming out and doing the same thing that Sean's doing already, but in their respective towns. And they want to come out because they want to give people the opportunity to worship, and give people that are contemplating suicide and want and realize what they really crave is human interaction, human fellowship, human touch, to help them out of these suicidal thoughts. It's given these people like Sean, they want to give them that opportunity, people that are suffering from drug and alcohol abuse. They want to give them a chance to, get closer to God and seek out God along with other, churchgoers, other religious people, right? And now the government, they don't want you to have that outlet. They're trying to shut all that down. They're trying to shut down religion, trying to shut down church. They'll let the casinos stay open. Casinos can stay open all they want, but churches can't. So, but that's all these people are trying to do is trying to provide a religious outlet for people. Okay, and one of those other people that are doing this is a pastor from Kenya that I believe Sean meets up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I think that's where this pastor from Kenya, I think that's where his church is at, is in Minneapolis. And so this Sean Feucht gets together with this pastor from Kenya. I forgive me, I forget what the the pastor from Kenya's name is. I should know that. But this pastor from Kenya, he is like, when you watch this, I think if you're honest, you're going to think this guy is like the personification of bravery and love for his fellow man. And where the bravery comes in is he's holding like a lettuce worship service right there, at the street, at the intersection where George Floyd was killed, like right where the George Floyd shrine, is at. And so they have one of the worship, lettuce worship services there, and it brings out all kinds of people from that neighborhood to this, and not just white nationalists. You have tons of black people from that country, from that neighborhood, Hispanics. It's not just white people, is the point I'm making here. And so yeah, they all come out and they have they just have a very inspirational time to gather together in a place that was the location of destructive, murderous riots, with the George Floyd riots there. They right there at that same intersection where they, tried to burn down the cop shop there, the police station. Yeah, they have this worship service there, and it's fantastic, but it does take guts because you never know who's going to come out. And also, I mean, what I gathered from this is, for people like Gavin Newsom who sorely wants separation of church and state, he sure did feel free to link the church and state together when he felt his state could tell the church what to do. So much for separation of church and state. He's like, wow, I'm going to keep church and state, separate, but not so much that my state can't tell churches what to do. Okay, so yeah, when he's just chomping at the bit to tell the church what to do, that church and state stuff goes right out the window. Okay, and now, also, as you may have seen, when the pandemic was still going, is you had a lot of haters acting like outside worship services were going to be these super spreaders, right? That would just kill many, many people. But then they were perfectly fine with a bunch of outside Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests and didn't call those super spreaders. They were perfectly fine with those. I remember they were going after worship services. I remember a lot of COVID Karens screaming about college football games. All these people on top of each other are going to kill everybody. Ah! But the BLM and Antifa protests, they're perfectly fine. They can meet wherever they want. That's perfectly fine. So it's just blatant hypocrisy going on here. And also, this movie, it points out a very important point that the gradual attacks on freedoms and the church basically mirrors what the communists did back in communist Russia. Restricting what the church can do, restricting freedoms. That was the beginning of the murderous years of communist Russia there. And that's pointed out by a guy named Joseph Bondarenko. And most importantly, at the end of this movie, a blurb correctly points out that for all the screaming of all the freaking out about these worship services, research shows that none of these worship services ended up being super spreaders. Just like the college football games that COVID Karen screamed about were going to be super spreaders, but weren't. The stats clearly show these worship services were not super spreaders, okay? So, yeah, I would definitely check out Superspreader. It could be out at your local theaters like right now as of when I'm making this this episode. Or, just Google it, just search for it, and I'm sure you'll find it somewhere online or something like that. But anyway, with that, hey, thanks a lot for listening to this episode, and I really appreciate it. Pass it along to all your friends, your family, anybody you think that would be interested. And with that, as always, get out there, people. Those movies aren't going to watch themselves. Have a great one.
Hey, guys, don't leave the video quite yet. Okay, I've got a po-po. They're coming after me, and I don't have much time to tell you, but you need to like and subscribe this video right here, down below. It's right down there. It's just waiting. It's waiting for you down there, okay? And make sure you watch these videos over here, too. You'll be doing me a big favor. I'm going to be in handcuffs pretty soon. All right. Thanks for watching.